I'm Pam Shockley-Zalabak. I'm a professor of communication here at UCCS, as well as the chancellor. And so it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the opening of our academic year. And I especially am welcoming everyone in the room, students, family members, friends, staff, faculty, and all of you who are going to spend so much of your time with us over the next several years. Now, before we begin, there are some folks I'd like for you to meet, and I'm going to ask them to stand, and I'm going to ask them to turn around and face the audience, which can be a little difficult in some of the seats. But I'm going to ask them to do that, and I would like to ask all of them to remain standing until I complete my introductions. First of all, our own regent from the 5th Congressional District, Kyle Hibble, but who is also the chair of the University of Colorado System Board of Regents. So Kyle, please stand, and thank you for joining us. Next, I would ask all of the UCCS chancellor, vice chancellors and deans to please stand and turn around and face everybody out there and wave. Now, the people you are going to know really well, would all the faculty please stand and turn around and wave? We've got faculty all over the place. And now I'd like the UCCS staff to stand and wave to the group. All the staff members, excellent. All right, we will let all these folks sit down. But now, before you leave the barbecue tonight, you're supposed to meet all of them individually? Probably not, but over the next several years, hopefully. Because tonight, this is really an academic gathering that is a celebration. It's kind of a tradition in universities to celebrate the beginning of the year with a convocation. And so I want to very briefly talk to you, our new students, and your family and friends. My message is very short and very much to the point. This is a special opportunity the days when you start either for our transfer students at a new university or for our first-time freshmen at your first experience in the university. And for our freshman class, you are not only the largest class in our history, but the best qualified class in our history. So let's give yourselves a round of applause. You are to be congratulated, and our transfer students as well, for the momentum that has brought you to this day. The University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, moving into Summit Village, getting ready for freshman seminar, and a number of other experiences, the transfer seminar today. I hope you will use that momentum to your advantage, because ultimately, although we are here as a faculty and staff to support you individually and to help you reach your potential and your dreams, but of course, ultimately, your success depends on you. You're going to be hearing tonight from some people who have been successful and learning some of the principles that has helped them along the way. But I encourage you to listen, but also think about how you can apply that to your own individual path. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce one of my colleagues, a professor in the College of Education and the UCCS Provost, Peg Bacon.
Thank you, Chancellor Shockley. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the beginning of a new academic year. That's, as Chancellor Shockley said, what this convocation is about. We are especially pleased to welcome our new students, whether you're freshmen or transfer students, our new faculty, and our new staff. And I'm very pleased to acknowledge the second cohort of students within our honors program here at UCCS. So if I can have that honors cohort of students stand and be recognized, that would be great. Thank you. They're enrolled in a select freshman seminar and will be taking honors courses together and have cleared some substantial roadblocks just to get admitted into that program. So I'm delighted to welcome them. Convocation officially opens the academic school year. It is the beginning of the life-changing experience of college. Make the most of your time here, living a life that is full of hope and not of regret for lost opportunities. President Barack Obama has said that if you're walking down the right path and you're willing to keep walking, eventually you'll make progress. You will notice that our student success theme this year is about being on track. Let this be the start of the right path in college for you. And now it is my pleasure to introduce your president of the Student Government Association, Christina Aki. Christina?
Welcome to the University of Colorado Springs. Are you excited to be here? That wasn't good enough. Are you excited to be here? Now that's what I like to hear. Now I know I am very excited to be standing up here as your student body president. I am a military wife and went to a few different colleges before finally finding a home here in Colorado Springs and at UCCS. Not only does UCCS have an absolutely beautiful campus, but it is home to a great variety of wonderful people. Having been a student here for nearly 2 years, I have no doubt that you will have a great experience here. To get the most out of your college experience, I recommend that every student get involved. Being involved in the campus community and becoming a student leader has added to my education. I've met people, learned lessons, and gained experiences that I could not have received in a classroom. To be honest, when I first became a student at UCCS, I didn't plan on being student body president. And that's the great thing about this university. If you get involved, you will have the opportunity to explore your interests and learn more about yourself. In addition to enriching my education, being an involved student has given me the opportunity to build friendships that I hope will continue for a lifetime. I feel a strong connection to this campus, its students, faculty, and staff. The possibilities on this campus are endless. There is something here for everyone, and if there isn't, student government is here to help you fill the gap. This year will probably be one of the most exciting years UCCS has ever seen. We ended last year with over 180 clubs and organizations, and student activity is at an all-time high. Our goal this year will be to continue to strengthen the campus community while reaching out to the Colorado Springs community. The Student Government Association is dedicated to serving you, the student, and we hope we can help to make your time here as enjoyable as possible. Good luck to you all in your endeavors, and I'll see you around campus.
And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, Dr. Gene Abrams. Dr. Abrams came to the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs in 1983 as an assistant professor in the math department. He completed his BA in math at the University of California at San Diego and his master's and PhD from the University of Oregon. He was the recipient of the Chancellor's Award, the highest honor on our campus, this past year, 2010, but he has also earned a great many other awards, including the UCCS Outstanding Teaching Award in 1988 and College Teaching Awards in several other years. In 1996, he was named a University of Colorado President's Teaching Scholar, which is the highest honor in the entire University of Colorado system for faculty who have excelled in teaching and scholarship. As you can see in the program, Gene is also a prolific scholar with over 40 articles and books. He's recognized nationally and internationally. Gene does have some spare time that he spends mountain biking, cross-country skiing, and, oh, by the way, living, eating, sleeping, baseball. Our all-campus reads selection this year is the last lecture, and Dr. Abrams will be giving us what he's calling the 5,000th lecture this evening. Gene.
Thank you for that nice and humbling introduction. As you'll find early on, I'm not much for standing behind a podium, so I'll maybe just to walk off some nervous energy, walk around a little bit. The task is, blah, 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 I'm reading right from the program here, to deliver the keynote address and speak about insights from Randy Pausch's The Last Lecture, which all of you presumably have read. I've been in the business long enough to know that maybe not all of you have read that, but nevertheless, for those of you that have read it, I mean, this is a pretty humbling experience. Here's a guy, Dr. Randy Pausch, who is diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, knows he has essentially 6 months to live, and is asked to give literally his last lecture. So what do you do in 1 hour when you know that this is literally your last lecture? Well, you do a lot, and he did it very compellingly and very humbly. He talked about his childhood, he talked about his family, including his parents and his wife and his children. He talked about his academic career. Well, I can't do all of that in 20 minutes, and this is not the appropriate place to do so, but what I'd like to do is at least share with you some of the things that struck me from Randy Pausch's book that hopefully will sort of act as a takeaway for you. So in the next 20 minutes, the hope is that you learn a few things, or you realize a few things, or you hit your forehead and say, oh yeah, I should have thought of that. Things that will, over the next 4 years of your academic career, will hopefully be useful to you. Okay? So that's the goal here. Now, when I was asked to make some comments and give insights about Randy Pausch's The Last Lecture, the question was, well, how do I do that? How do I prepare that? And how do I sort of deliver it in such a way that it'll be meaningful to the people in the audience? And in sort of kicking around what I might say and what I might call this address, I kicked around some ideas with my wife, who I'm glad could join us today. Well, it's not my last lecture. I mean, I don't think I have any sort of terminal disease, and I'm hoping not to get hit by a bus between now and, well, next Tuesday when I start teaching again. It's not my first lecture. It's somewhere in between, so where is it? And so that was a compelling question. My wife, Mickey, said, well, okay, how many lectures have you given? I don't know. I never thought about it. Well, I did some calculating. I grabbed a pencil, back of an envelope, and tried to figure out how many lectures I've actually given. Well, I taught as a graduate student for 5 years, University of Oregon, go Ducks. This will be my 30th year of teaching as a professor. 27 of those were spent here, so I'm a long timer, certainly a lifer at UCCS. I've taught a lot of summer school. I've been fortunate enough to give some lectures about some of my research work at places throughout the world. I've given some lectures to high school students. There may be some students in here who have seen me on a previous occasion speaking about mathematics in some high schools throughout the Pikes Peak region. I've given some lectures at Sky Sox games. Some of you in this room may have seen those as well. I've given some lectures in microbreweries. I'll talk about those in about 10 minutes or so. And if you add them all up, I'm okay at that. I do mathematics for a living. You get 4,999 of them, and so today is my 5,000th lecture. So, all right, so I went through this. I mean, there's a little bit of mathematical license that I took here. It's probably not exact, but okay, it's close enough. And what I realized along the way is that you know, each of these sort of flavors of lectures that I've given over my career, from graduate school to the professoriate, to summer school, to these that I've listed out here, lectures about research, high school students, etc., each of those flavors somehow speaks directly to something that Randy Pausch talks about in his book, at least as it reflects his sort of philosophy of the academia, the academic world, etc. So what I'd like to do is show you over the next few minutes how each of these flavors really sort of sends a message as to how I think it's optimal for you to proceed in your academic career. Now, given the response to how many of you read the book, I'll lead with my chin and ask another question. How many of you actually were curious about this guy, curious enough to go on YouTube and actually watch the last lecture? All right, some of you, good for you. Well, for those of you that didn't, what I did was went online and I picked off some pictures of, let's see if we can do this, Randy Pausch. It doesn't come up too clearly, but here are some stills that were taken from his last lecture. And what struck me was, you know, here's a guy that, I mean, he literally has a death sentence. He knows he's going to die in the next 6 months. And if you watch the entire video, this big grin on his face never leaves. This is clearly a guy that loves what he's doing. This is clearly a guy that finds some significant joy and passion in sharing what he knows, well, not only with his students, but with his colleagues and with anybody who happened to have attended this last lecture. I'm going to get back to this idea of sort of joy in what you're doing or sharing your passions in the classroom in a little bit. So let me, as promised then, go back to this list of types of lectures that I've given and relate each of those to something that appeared in Randy Pausch's book, The Last Lecture. So I taught for 5 years as a graduate student. That's a good lead into an idea that, quite honestly, I'd never heard before, what Randy Pausch calls Dutch uncles, in which I'm going to paraphrase as Dutch aunts and uncles. Let's see, I wrote this down. Randy Pausch defines a Dutch uncle as a person who gives you honest feedback. Well, for you, over the next 4 years, your Dutch aunts and uncles will be your professors here. Here's the deal. You may not be used to getting what might be perceived as criticism about your work. It might be the case that you sort of waltz through high school and your teachers always said, oh, Mary, oh, Johnny, you're doing such a nice job, keep it up. Folks, that's not my job. That's not my colleague's job now that you're at the university. My role here, my job, my mission is to give you honest feedback on your work. If it's good, I'll tell you it's good. If you need improvement, I'm going to tell you it needs improvement. You're at UCCS. UCCS is a wonderful academic institution, if for no other reason, I mean, there's lots of reasons, but one is the classes are incredibly small here. I teach Calculus 1. It's typically to 40 students, not 400 students, 40 students. I know my students. My colleagues know their students. They know them by first name. They're going to give you honest feedback. When they do, please take it to heart. If you turn in an essay and your professor spends the time bleeding all over it and you get something back that's sort of completely red, or you look at it and you have to put sunglasses on because it's so bright, that's good. It means that your professor has taken a lot of interest in your work and is offering you honest feedback. Please take it to heart. Revise your essay. Think about how you might change things around. Think about new ideas that your professor might have included in this feedback. That's Dutch aunts and uncles. Just for what it's worth, I had a Dutch uncle when I was an undergrad. You know, it's sort of a love-hate relationship, but in the end, my Dutch uncle gave me almost to the word exactly the same advice that Randy Pausch's Dutch uncle gave him. Get yourself a PhD, be a professor, is what he told me in the middle of my 4th year. And if he hadn't been so sort of brutally honest over the course of my academic career, I may have blown off that particular advice. But when he gave it, I knew that it was sincere. And, well, things turned out, I think, pretty well for me in that way. Second, I've taught 29 years as a professor. And what I'd like to share with you, and this will be sort of the majority of the time that I spend talking about a particular subject, I'll share with you the following idea. Folks, you're not in high school anymore. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, you know, high school was what? You go to class, you take tests, you do homework. University, you go to class, take tests, you do homework. I mean, they look the same on the surface. They're absolutely different beasts. And for me personally, with so many years of experience in the classroom, here's why. You see, in high school, your teachers were responsible for your learning. The school was responsible for getting you an education because it's law. You got to educate everybody through the high school years. It's completely opposite now that you're at university. The responsibility for your education is with you. Okay, I'm a player. My colleagues are players. We're going to help you along. We're going to do a really good job. But the responsibility rests with you. Okay, there's some downside to that, but there's significant upside to that. For instance, if you're having trouble in a class and you need to put extra time in, you need to seek out extra help, that's not going to happen in the classroom. You're going to have to actually sort of take the bull by the horns and seek it out. You're going to have to go to your professor's office. You're going to have to go to the Math Learning Center or the Science Learning Center or all the other learning centers on campus. You're going to have to form study groups. Nobody's going to tell you to do that. That's now on you. Now, if it's the case that, you know, the material's coming easy to you and you don't need any additional help, that's good for you. But please keep in mind that that responsibility is now yours. You think, well, yeah. I think the most compelling idea that Randy Pausch got across in his book about the role of all the players in the academic world is this. He talked more than once about his dislike of the business model in the academic setting. I agree, I hate the business model tried to be applied in the academic setting. The students, you folks, are not the customers per se. All right, you plunk down your money and now you're in. But here's the deal, folks. Paying your tuition and signing up for classes is just the first step. Here's the better model than a sort of business consumer model. It's the health club model, and this is the one that Randy Pausch talks about. It's perfect. The health club model is you get out what you put in. I mean, you can be a member of a health club, and a year later, you're still, you know, fat and out of shape. Why? Because you didn't put any time in. You didn't put any effort in. The best model for me of the university is view it as a health club for your head. Somebody called it a Bally's for your brain. That's the perfect model. You get out what you put in. You got to work hard. So why work hard? I mean, why bother working hard? Look, I mean, maybe I'm not supposed to say this, it's not the company line, but it's true. You could probably waltz through here for 4 years and check all the boxes and pass classes and get out with a degree. You know, ho-hum. Don't do that. Work hard here. Step up. So what's the work hard mean? Well, I'll get back to that in a little bit, but the point is, inherent in working hard are two things that maybe you haven't thought of. I'm sure people have shared with you, well, if you work hard, then you'll get good grades, you'll get out, you'll have a nice vita, you'll get a nice job, blah, 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 and, you know, life is hunky-dory after that. Okay, that's maybe a reason for working hard at the university, but for me, there's two additional reasons which are significantly more compelling. One is, working hard at the university allows you to get to places that you otherwise would never be able to get. Just like working hard at a health club would. You know, if you work out at a health club, it means you're in pretty good shape. It means you're able to hike to the top of the mountain and see the views. It means you're able to go for a big bike ride and sort of experience all that there is. It means that you have the sort of energy to get out in the middle of nowhere on a cross-country ski. And as you'll find, and for those of you that sort of, you know, do work out at a health club, the second reason is there's this inherent satisfaction in just working hard. It's nice. I mean, if you're out there running and, you know, sometimes you sort of feel this runner's high. It's legit to say there's sort of an academia high or a study high. See if you can get there. There's merit in working hard. Let me tell you a quick story. So my wife and I have 2 kids. They're both at the university now. And when our oldest, who's a boy, Ben, was a junior in high school, we went to one of these academic, I forget what the name is, academic counselor or something. You go to this person and they tell you, here's the schools that are best suited for your child, and here's how you go about applying to those schools, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so we went, and you know, we paid this guy a handsome amount of money, and it was not a terrible experience, but okay, it was a little bit unsatisfying. Suffice it to say, we didn't do the same thing when our daughter wound up going to college. I left the meeting, though, with this guy with one thing that stuck with me. He looked at our son and said, here's what universities want, Ben. They want interesting people, so be an interesting person. I was like, what the heck does that mean? Be an interesting person? I thought about that for a while. What does that mean? Be an interesting person. Well, that's the sort of people that the university likes to attract. It's the sort of person I think you'd want to be if somebody said, well, interesting or boring, you get a choice. You'd choose interesting. But I'm going to paraphrase that slightly. In order to be an interesting person, I suggest that you be an interested person. Have an interest in a lot of things. This is the place to pursue those interests. This is the opportunity to think deeply and think broadly, not only about those things that you already think you might be interested in, but a vast array of other things. Look around for things that are completely outside the box. You know, I talked about the university somehow not being the consumer model in the sense that you're responsible for your learning. But with responsibility comes opportunity. Hey, take the course catalog, open it up, just start leafing through it. Find something that might look interesting to you and do it. Think broadly about things, think deeply about things. Now, a quick comment for, I know that some of the newly minted professors were invited to attend here. You know, there's this dance that goes on in the classroom between professor and student. And look, you're new to the academic game. I would suggest the following. You've spent at least 10 years of your life in the academic setting, you know, 4 years in undergraduate, probably 5 or 6 years in graduate school. You probably did some postdoc work. So you spent at least 10 years studying something deeply. There was a reason at one point that you thought this subject was compelling enough to spend at least 10 years of your life studying. Share that with your students. Now, you don't have to make every lecture, you know, one with a big smile on your face like Randy Pausch did. But sort of dance this tango with your students in the classroom by showing a little bit of excitement or enthusiasm or joy, just a little bit of spark about the subject that you're sharing. You're not in high school anymore. Teaching summer school. Let's see, what do I... well, I'll make a couple of quick remarks here. So I taught summer school. School is year-long here, folks. I mean, the university doesn't shut down for 4 months in the summer. You talk about summer vacation. Some of us get it, but not too often. Don't worry about that. I mean, if you got to take classes in the summer, good. If you want to take classes in the summer, that's also good. I mean, we teach them. And following up from year-long school, I'll talk about lifelong learnings. So I've been fortunate that actually as part of my job description, I'm supposed to do research and creative work. It's part of my role as a professor. And what that means is I get to keep learning stuff. It's cool. I mean, it's fun to keep learning stuff. And whether or not you happen to eventually wind up in the academic business, just keep this in mind. What you're going to do for the next 4 years is really just a springboard into hopefully what the rest of your life will look like. Thirst for knowledge, sort of, you read voraciously. So I've given some talks to high school students. And in that context, I'll say, pay it forward. Pay it forward, of course, means, you know, if you have something to share, do that. What I thought I had to share, and people gave me positive feedback about this, was, you know, in the high school, I could tell students, look, here's why it's in your best interest to keep taking mathematics courses. Or here's what it is you'll learn, you know, in the mathematics courses in high school that you'll eventually be able to apply in college and beyond. If you have some skill, if you have some interest, if you have some ideas, if you have some knowledge to share, do it. And of course, the pay it forward could apply to a much more general notion of charity and giving back to the community. So I'll chunk the last two types of lectures that I've given, lectures at Sky Sox games and lectures in microbreweries. Randy Pausch talks about this a lot in his book. He feels himself fortunate, as do I, that he's been able to take his career, what he does, sort of for a living, and the things that he enjoys doing, and combine them together. He talks about how satisfying that work is. Specifically, he talks about his time where he, as a professor, wanted to take 6 months off and go work for Disney as an Imagineer. And that was a compelling part of the book. He, talked about sort of the issues that he had to get through in order to, I think there was one dean that he had to sort of go around or sort of, make sure that he had to get past. But this was, to me, another compelling part of the book. Take what you like to do and sort of combine it with the other things that you like to do. Well, I like baseball, as Provost Bacon mentioned, and I don't know, just by show of hands, did any of you go to math youth days in middle school here? Yeah, a couple of hands here. All right, well, so we rigged something out at Sky Sox Stadium where students would get out of school for the day and they'd do math problems at the ball game in between innings. Okay, that was a fun deal. Lectures in microbreweries. Well, there's a series of monthly talks at various microbrews throughout the state. It's called Café Scientifique, where scientists or people in the scientific world stand up for an hour, no, actually a half hour, and give a presentation to a very general public, a non-expert group, just about what they do, why they do it, what they find interesting in it, etc. So I was fortunate enough to do that a couple times. In fact, I'll plug this series. This series has been dormant for a while in Colorado Springs, but is being resurrected here on the UCCS campus, and the first one of these, I don't know the title, but the first one of these is November 9th. The thing is, folks, these are the sorts of things that during your academic career you should be looking for. Wow, I don't know anything about science. Maybe you're an English lit major or something like that. Maybe you think you hate science. Well, go. Experience these things. Maybe you'll find something interesting. You'll at least see people passionate about what they do, and that'll probably give you a better appreciation for what it is they do. Okay, so here's the 5,000th lecture. What is it that I'm hoping that you take out of this room and that you've maybe heard or absorbed over the last 20 minutes? Yeah, well, you've got to work hard. I mean, that's the way it is. Think broadly and deeply. Find some things that you're interested in, but regardless of what it is that you're interested in every class that you sit, think, I'm really going to try to understand this. I'm going to understand why it is people, my professor in particular, think this subject is so interesting. You'll learn something. Be interested in things and be interesting. Yeah, I like this one. Don't submit crap. So, because I have my 15 minutes here. So when I taught freshman seminar, I used to share this with my students. I'm going to talk about this at two levels. One is, take some pride in the work that you're doing here. It's totally clear to me when I'm grading papers, the students that have just done the sleepwalk thing through the assignment, all right, I'll write down enough just to get through it. And the students that have actually owned the assignment and thought, you know what, there's a reason that I'm being asked to do this by my professor. He or she is hoping that I learn something, hoping I get something out of it. Maybe I should dig a little deeper, put some time and effort and energy into it so that I see what that next level is. And the second piece of don't submit crap is, this is my pet peeve. Folks, if you're going to send an email to your professor, that's fine to do, but read it twice before you send it, and for crying out loud, run it through a spell checker, please. Find a passion, but maintain your balance. Find a passion. You don't take a lot of classes. You may think you already know what it is you want to do here. Okay, that's good. Take classes in that subject or in that field, but don't put the blinders on. Keep taking other classes. Look at the course schedule. Ask other people around you. Ask people that are juniors and seniors maybe that you might meet. Hey, give me a class that's just interesting, just totally outside the box. Throw a dart at the course catalog and find me a good professor that's really interesting. Do that sort of thing. So I'll be honest with you folks. I was really tempted to put this number one bullet, work hard, up again. I mean, that's the punchline. You just got to work hard. But some people say work is a four-letter word. It certainly has some negative connotations. So rather than saying work hard again, I'll say work out hard. Keep this health club for your head model in mind. As you're working at it, derive some satisfaction not only from it, but also from the fact that you know that once you're done with your 4 years here and beyond, working out hard will get you to a lot of places that you'll really want to be. And finally, appreciate the opportunity and take full advantage of it. And I will stop there. Thank you. Questions?
Dr. Abrams has graciously agreed to answer a few questions. And what I will do is ask that you raise your hand, and when you're called upon, please stand and be recognized so a microphone can come to you. So, questions for Dr. Abrams?
Please, over here.
When would you say that it's the best time to get to know your professor?
Oops, gotta wait for the runner here.
When would you say is the best time to get to know your professor?
Right now. And even before classes start. You might just knock on his or her office door and say, hey, introduce yourself, maybe where you're from, what you're interested in, and as I said, the point is that your classes here are small enough that your professor will appreciate sort of a head start on getting to know your name and face, and then go from there. What I like to do in my own class is each Tuesday I have 3 students stand up and essentially introduce themselves not only to me but to their classmates as well. So maybe that'll happen in your class too. Early's better.
Thanks.
Sure.
Another question?
Please.
Oh, right here.
Well, Professor Abrams, you talk about keeping a balance, and Randy Pausch definitely talks about doing what you love and don't spend a lot of time on other things. How would you recommend that we balance generating interests with the responsibilities that are coming, say, after college?
Yeah, so there's no magic formula there. So the question was, if I can paraphrase, how to balance what might be competing demands on your time and energy. There is no magic formula. In fact, you'll make plenty of mistakes. I admit to making a lot of mistakes. I focused on this too much. I didn't focus on this enough, etc. But balance, I think, is a learned behavior. You say, oh, spent too much time doing research this time, or spent too much time riding my bike this time. Well, I never spent too much time riding my bike. But okay, I mean, you just know. You either have to back off or push up. But I guess the only thing I'd suggest is make sure that through it all you leave time for yourself, just to sit and reflect and sort of understand where you are in the grand scheme of things. That's true, I think, for students as well. You know, it might be the case that you're going to feel all this pressure from your classes, from your peer group. Just make sure that you carve out some time each day or at least each week where you can just sit and reflect about where you are, where you want to be, where you're headed, etc.
Other questions?
Please don't be shy.
Dr. Abrams, in this age of technology, academic honesty has taken a whole different meaning. Do you have any advice for our students who are going to start college on academic honesty?
Ooh, academic honesty. I can give you my personal philosophy, which is there are not very many things in this life that I get angry about, and that's one of them, academic dishonesty. I make it clear to my own students, look, the goal is to have you understand the material. So learn as deeply as you can. Use all of the resources at your disposal to learn deeply, to think deeply, to understand the material. But once it comes to taking the exams, or depending on your instructor's homework policy, once it comes to doing the work and showing what you know, then all bets are off. It's all you. And any sort of indication that it isn't all you, I think, should be and will be dealt with pretty harshly. So,
Great.
Others, please, folks.
Any other questions? Don't be shy. Oh, back here, there's
Please.
one.
Oh.
You mentioned starting up that microbrewery lecture series again.
Yes.
What exactly are you looking to do for that? And
Let's see.
how would you get involved as someone out there not associated with the school?
You should email Dr. Bacon, who will forward the message to Dr. Huber.
And actually, those Café Scientifiques will be on our website. So we'll actually have a link on that under campus events. But if you can't find that, make sure and email me, and it's mbacon@UCCS.
I like beer, so that sounds good to me.
Any other questions? Oh, right here.
Please, hi.
Just a minute.
Oops.
Wait for the mic, please.
I was wondering, as a parent of college students, if you had any advice for the parents of these incoming freshmen about how to help them make that transition into their academic careers.
Yeah, keep your fingers crossed a lot. So, no, boy, I mean, it's hard enough for me to give advice to other professors, but giving advice to other parents is just not on my radar screen. Although I'd say encourage your sons and daughters to take advantage of the opportunity, but to sort of broaden his or her horizons. Look at the course, find things that are interesting, and encourage them to, you know, if you and your child think, well, I've come here to become a certain type of major and I'm just going to put the blinders on for 4 years and then walk out with that major, that might be a relatively good strategy as far as getting a specific job, but at least as far as taking advantage of the opportunity at the academy, that's, I think, not a good strategy. So encourage your sons and daughters to sort of think broadly as well as deeply, and then keep your fingers crossed still.
Okay. One more over here.
Yes, Professor Abrams, I'm wondering, as an undergraduate, if you had a job. I'm concerned that a lot of our students work part-time and therefore sometimes shortchange their education because of time constraints.
Right. So, I mean, that's clearly a big issue. I worked full-time every summer, and I mean, quite honestly, I was very fortunate to be able to work full-time every summer. I know in this particular economy that's not always a possibility, but I encourage you to sort of keep looking in subsequent summers. I had a job in the Math Learning Center, the equivalent of the Math Learning Center at the place I was at, and it turned out I was able to work a little bit for the company that I worked for over the summers through the academic year, but that was more just sort of fun and entertaining rather than income generating. But yeah, I had to work, and I think it allowed me, it certainly required me to, but it gave me the opportunity to think about how to budget my time, where I need to put my energy, you know, and my time, and I think it made for a better experience for me as an undergrad.
Great. Thank you. Oh, and there's one back here, and that'll be our last one.
If you could go back in time to your freshman year and give yourself a little bit of advice, what would you say?
Wow. I'd say this. I already said it. What would I say? Yeah. What would I say? I mean, I guess even though you don't know it now, it is the case that many, if not most of your lifelong friends will be made in the next 6 months. The people that you meet now are the ones that you will carry with you for many, many years into your life. And I guess I'd say make sure that the people that you surround yourself with and the people that you're meeting now, talk to them, look at them in the eye, and just ask what they're about, and just try to bond not only with the academics but with the people around you. And I think that'll make the experience even that much more satisfying.
Thank you. I want us to thank again Dr. Abrams for his inspiration.
Thank you.
You are all welcome to join us for the Convocation barbecue. It's complimentary outside. in the University Plaza. There are 3 buffet stations right outside on the plaza, and it looks like a beautiful evening. But there are also stations inside the University Center through the double doors, in the Overlook Cafe, and by Jasmine's Cafe, and in front of the library. A special note for those of you who are in freshman seminar classes, if you'd like to sit with other members, those same signs that were held up, your junior teaching assistants will have those, and you can sit with those folks. You'll be meeting tomorrow morning. I want to thank you again for joining us. Behind me is a banner that many of you signed when you came to freshman orientation. Has signatures from a good many of our 1,000+ freshmen, so you're welcome to look at that. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Best wishes for an academic year.